Good morning.
Good morning, Renee. How are you?
Good, and yourself?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm sitting down here with Tammy, but she's probably not going to get on because we don't want to echo in the same room. So,
Oh, you're both in the same house?
yes.
Oh. I'm trying to get this camera to turn on. There we go. Of course, I don't know why I want the camera. I hate the camera.
I was going to say, I hate the cameras too, but are you doing good?
I'm not feeling well. I've been sick the last couple days, but I've got a bunch of work that has to get done. So I usually come in the office Tuesday and Wednesday, but I've stayed home and worked. I
Right.
think I caught something last week when I was there.
That's the problem. We shouldn't have to go back there and catch crap.
I know. I didn't get sick at all last year, not even once. And now we're just getting back, and I've been sick a couple times catching things people come to work with. And that's part of why I'm not there is I don't want to pass it to anybody else.
Give it back around.
Exactly.
Did you go for a COVID test?
No, it's not that kind of stuff. I'm sneezing and it's like a cold kind of stuff. No fever, coughing. The same thing Becky had last week when I was there. So I think I picked it up from Becky Peters. But I am fully vaccinated.
That's good.
Although we see by Colin Powell yesterday, that doesn't always matter. He died and he was fully vaccinated and he died from COVID. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning. How was everyone today?
We were all just discussing that.
Doing good. How about you?
Doing good. Doing real good. Crazy year again.
Can you remind me again what district you're from?
I work for Murray.
Murray. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm gonna go
Sometimes it's hard to keep track of everybody's district.
Of course. That's a lot of people.
Well, and I work 5 different areas, so it is a lot of people.
Yes. Yes.
Just like you, Marilee, you work a lot of different areas.
Yep.
I imagine Jeff will be on any minute.
Is there going to be the food and care package delivered? I mean, this year?
I don't know. I need to check with them. I'll send her an email and find out with the backpacks.
Yeah.
I'll find out. I know they didn't do it last year.
No.
And so I'll find out if there's something in the works for this year. I'll shoot her an email. If they do, we usually schedule it for around the end of February, beginning of March, so that everybody's not coming in the snow. We used to do it at the end of January and it was outside. And no, we don't want to do that again. But we also used to be able to provide food and hot chocolate, and that made it nice. Good morning, Veronica.
Good morning.
I'm not sure what to talk about. I got my turkey yesterday. It's a big blow up one sitting on a pumpkin for my yard. I'm a big yard decorator. It's all done up right now for Halloween.
I'm a bah humbug decorator. I don't do it very well.
No, mine aren't hard because most of them are yard decorations. So you just put them down and blow them up. But I got 2 turkeys this year. One's in a football uniform ready to throw the football because I didn't have anything for Thanksgiving last year, just Halloween and Christmas. So now I have 3 for Thanksgiving.
That's good. I do Christmas and that's about all I decorate. And if I get there, it's hard.
I love it. And I'm the only one on my block that does anything. So it just kind of stands out a little bit more. And my granddaughter loves it. I didn't do a lot of this till I had a granddaughter.
Right.
In fact, all 3 of us this year are going to be witches. She wants to be a witch. So I got me a witch costume to be a witch with her. And her mama decided she would be a witch too.
You guys need to go over to Gardner Village and just walk around.
Oh, I know. It's so cool over there.
If
I
you're
need to
witches,
take
yeah.
her there.
Yeah, dress up and go. It's
Yeah,
cute.
I need to take her. She gets a little older, we'll have to be what are those sisters from Hocus Pocus?
Yeah.
Sanderson sisters. Good morning, Mike.
There we go. Couldn't find the
There
mute.
you go.
How are you all?
We're good.
Good. Hey, Lisa.
Hi there.
It's been a while, man.
I know it's been a long while. It's been a long while to see anybody.
We're gonna have a Salt Lake County Liaison meeting. We'll make sure we invite you.
How's that going?
Good. Good, good. That's where the real work happens.
Good morning, Jeff.
Morning, everyone. How's everybody doing?
We're all well.
Good. Glad to hear that. No need for everybody to get quiet on my account. Still got some time.
But now it's not fun.
Right?
It's not fun anymore.
You're my boss. I have to be careful.
No, sorry to be the buzzkill.
We were discussing decorations.
Oh, fun. Halloween decorations?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Awesome.
so I've got my yard all done up.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, I have a couple of friends who really get into it and do a ton of stuff at their house. It's really fun.
yeah, I've got all those skeletons that talk when people walk by and startle them.
That's
It's
awesome.
fun to watch people jump.
That's just wrong. That's just wrong.
That's fun. We'll get started in just a minute here.
you send out an agenda for this meeting? Or are we just flying by the seat of our pants?
I did not send one out, and we always fly by the seat of our pants.
No,
I apologize. I just wasn't able to get one done for you guys, so I sincerely apologize. But I will be sending out the presentation. In fact, I'm hoping to post it up on the chat now so everybody can download it, and then I'll get it to Renee so that she can email it out to everybody. Can you guys see my desktop?
Yes,
Yeah.
we see your desktop.
Okay. And just to double check, everybody sees the McKinney Vento Liaison presentation now?
Mhm.
Yes.
Great. All right. Well, it is 9:01, and I don't want to keep you guys waiting. We do have quite a bit to cover today, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks very much for meeting with me again, everybody. It's always nice to see your faces, and I certainly appreciate the time that you take from all that you do to be able to spend time discussing just what our program is and what's going on with it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Just to set the
well,
context.
I'll go out there.
Oh, we got a few people that have their mics on, so you
Yeah,
wouldn't mind shutting that
But
down.
that's fine, but we're his school, so
They're like, what's going on? What do we need to do? And I said, yeah, he said, well, this is what's going on, but I think you
Hey
might,
guys, can you
might be good if you met with.
turn your mic off, please? Thanks.
Jeff, can you make it bigger?
Make the presentation bigger.
Yeah, you just have I don't know, it's just in a different mode. There you
There
go.
you go. That better? Awesome. All right. Just for context, once again, we are the McKinney Vento group, and it's nice to see your smiling faces this morning. Please keep your mics off while we're going through the process. I love seeing the cameras, so please don't kill those, but it is nice to be able to see you guys even like this. Hopefully we'll be able to get together soon. Okay. The McKinney Vento Act does have specific requirements, and so we're going to be going over those for LEAs. As part of that, there are a couple of things that have happened during this past year that I wanted to mention to you and get in touch with you with. I'm not sure that Lynn Sharp is with us this morning. She's supposed to be, but she is the UHIMAS system administrator, and the Utah Homeless, I can't even remember right now. Utah Homeless something system, MIS system. It's a database system we now have access to. You don't have to use it. However, you are able to and allowed to as the McKinney Vento liaison in your LEA. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that, and I had hoped that she would be here to present herself and tell you a little bit about the system. But what it is a collection of services. So it's a system database that collects who and how families and students, people receive services because of their homeless situation. And we, the Utah State Board of Education, including all of you, have now been granted access to be able to use that system. So you would be able to look up a student on the system and see if there are any services that have been provided locally within the community to help support their homeless situation. It would include any type of, ideally, it would include any type of service that they've received in regards to their situation. So hopefully that's helpful to you. I did want you to meet Lynn because she's not only a nice person, but is very helpful and very knowledgeable about how the system works. So hopefully we'll be able to get her at another time and introduce you guys so you guys are aware of how to use that system. Everybody should be.
I'm gonna shut everyone's mic down.
Hi, I'm here. I just heard the echo. Sorry. I'm gonna join. I'm gonna come back and hopefully I get better down.
And thanks, man. Feedback, isn't it?
There we go.
Yeah. So it looks like she tried to connect. We'll be connected. Not sure that's working. Do you guys still hear a hum?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm back, by the way. I'm glad it wasn't just me. I'm Lynn. Hi.
Hi, Lynn. Thanks for joining us.
Hi.
So,
So my apologies for being a little bit late. I had to drop my kid off in the morning, and with that school schedule, it's really hard to get to my desk by 9 o'clock. So my apologies. I'm just getting my PowerPoint open so that I can kind of go through the system. Because I just came in and I just heard like you guys were waiting for me. I missed everything else. Can you tell me a little bit? Can you recash? I'm so sorry to be late, guys.
no, you're fine. We haven't said very much. We just started the meeting and we're just getting underway. So we haven't missed much except for an introduction. Very brief.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm one of the system admins for UHMIS, and it's a statewide database for homeless services. Again, sorry if this is a rehash for you guys. And the nice thing about our system is that it's shared across, I think we have like 58 active agencies right now. And so you can see all of the data for homeless services between those agencies as long as the client's okay with that. And so, sorry, like thinking two things.
We can't see anything. I can't see anything. Can you guys see something?
I'm not sharing anything. My camera works now, so hey, we're making progress. So yeah, that's what it does. We have set up with the Utah Board of Education, with the McKinney Vento liaisons, an agreement to allow you guys into the system, so that you can review any of the students that you're working with to see if they're involved with the system, and like if they're working with a local shelter, or if they're working towards housing, or if like they're eligible. And so that's kind of what I'm here to like talk through and kind of show you what you need to do to get into that system. I wasn't planning on taking a whole lot of time. I don't know how much time you were planning on me to do. I can just show you like where to go to get started with training. I'm actively updating all of our training right now, which includes this training. So if you if you try to do it like tomorrow, you'll get a different training than you'll get today, because I'm just waiting for a video to upload, and then I'll upload the training. But I can show you where
That's great. Yeah, and as we discussed, you don't need to be on a whole lot of time, but it would be great if you could show people where to go and how to be able to get on.
Yeah, let me actually go to this page before I share my screen. Okay. So, and I'll put this link in the chat too. This is the like website that we use to post all of our training and everything for HMIS. And on this website, you can go to on-demand training. And in on-demand training at the very bottom, so it's kind of buried, but at the very bottom of it, this is where you can find your Find Client training, which is what you would be as a user with the Board of Education. And all you have to do to take this training is click this link. You don't have to sign up for it because we don't have to set you up in the system. You just have to click that link, pass the test, and then give us an end user agreement, which you will sign and Jeff will sign. and then we can give you access to the system. So it's pretty straightforward. Like I said, I'm actively updating this training, so like there's no video here because I recorded this video yesterday to update it. And then like, yeah, so I'm going to get that link today. But this is the training. Here, I'll give you a link to this too so that you can do it, but maybe like wait a couple of hours so that I can get you the actual updated video. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward too. It's not a terribly hard. Mostly we just have the quiz to make sure that you pay attention through the training. It's the video I recorded is about 45 minutes long, and then we provide some slides for you to review some of like the nuanced things, because HMIS or homeless services in general has like its own whole new world of jargon. And so I tried in this training to give you some like guidance on that jargon, because I know you're probably not doing it every day and don't know that specific jargon. You know the jargon for your job. So yeah. That's all I've got though, unless you guys have questions about what it can be used for. I can show you what like the training database looks like, so you can kind of get an idea of how you would use it in your job if you'd be interested in it. Probably should have had a better plan for that, but here we are. Yeah, I'll show you. This is our training database, so it's not real client information. But this is essentially what you get access to once it loads, is you'll be able to search for clients. And you can, there's a lot in the training on how to search for clients, but you'll be able to see what they're doing. And you'll be able to see what they've done most recently. And you can look up like them, you can look up like students. So we do enter children and share information about children into the system. And you can look up their parents. And I think that the only place where it would be hard to find is if you're working with runaway youth, because they cannot consent to sharing their information, so we don't share it in the system. So like if you're working with teenagers who are runaways and they are tapping into that homeless services system, you probably won't be able to see them in the system because they can't sign that release to share their information. The children whose information is shared in the system, they are associated with families, and so like their legal guardian can sign that for them. But I think it can be really helpful. You can see if they're involved in an emergency shelter or permanent supportive housing, or if they're working on rapid rehousing. And one of the reasons I had to update it is because we have this housing move-in date, so you can see if they're housed or not, just right there on that client dashboard. So there's some really helpful things in there that hopefully will make your jobs a little bit easier. And that's kind of the point. We do require an annual recertification. So in January 1st is when it's due, but we give you all of December to do it. So when that comes around, we'll ask you to do some more training. I know it's like the end of October, but we require it for everybody to make sure that we capture everybody. And I'm still kind of toying with how that'll work with our new Find Client users, because you as a user group is new to our system as of this year. So I'll try to figure out how we can make that more relevant to you as opposed to the users who put in identifying information into the system. But yeah, that's the database. It's pretty straightforward. You got to do a training. I will update those videos today. We had new data standards come out on October 1st, and so we've just been making sure everything is up to date. And we had new operating procedures that came out in July, and so we're just making sure everything matches those policies. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I don't have a question, but I do want to talk a little bit more about that, the UHIMIS, if that's okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I just got access to UHIMIS yesterday. Woo-woo, so excited. Been working on it for a long time, so thank you guys for helping me get access to that. So one of the clients that I had been working with, I was able to find them in the system, and it was interesting because I can see on here that they've already received their birth certificate. So they were receiving help for a birth certificate. I can see that they've been receiving case management, which is huge. I can also see that they've had some laundry services been given to them. So I was glad to know that, because otherwise that's something that we get concerned about, right? How are their families doing laundry? Are they in a situation to do that? Do we need to help them with tokens or go, get a gift card to a laundromat? I can see that they filled out an application for Medicaid. So that was a huge thing. And they've also done, I'm just like going off this stuff, they've had some housing activities, some housing services, and some employee assistance. So without this system, those are things I would have never known. But that answers a lot of questions on things we can help you, because we do ask, like, are you on Medicaid? Do you have insurance? What are your needs? And so we can kind of assess with that information to see where else we can fit in to help with the big picture. So I'm excited to use this program, so I hope you guys are too.
Well, thanks. I'm sorry for the delay.
Thanks, Lauren. Thanks, Lynn. Please get in touch with Lynn, as she's mentioned, off of the website, or you can get in touch with me, and we can certainly grant you access to that. As a reminder, this is not a requirement, so you don't have to use this system, but it is available to you, and I think in many cases it might be beneficial. So we wanted to make sure that you had access to that and to be able to look at that information on your kids and hopefully be able to help them out in an effective manner. Not that you don't already, just more effective. Our goal is to always try to be better, right? So with that, thanks again, Lynn. We certainly appreciate you coming and spending time with us today. We will move on.
Sorry for being late.
No, you're fine. Don't even worry about it. We will move on with the next portion of our meeting, and that has to do with oh gosh, sorry, I'm trying to move around here.
Jeff, I have a question while you're looking. Jody Lunt here from Davis. This system that we have access to, are our family service workers in our school district also allowed to have access, or is this only for homeless coordinators?
It is for homeless coordinators. That's who our contract is with.
Okay.
So the UHIMS contract is made with specifically with McKinney Vento. So you as liaisons and anyone that works under you can have access. We haven't broadened that scope to anybody else. Again, our contract is specifically with USBE in terms of McKinney Vento. But we can look into that further if you feel that's a need for you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now I'll turn the time over to Marilee. And Marilee, I'm sorry, I don't know your official title, except that you are the person that helps me out with financial stuff in our office. So I very much appreciate you. But I'll turn the time over to you, and you can introduce yourself with your official capacity.
Okay, hi, I am Marilee Wendell. I am the fiscal monitor for this program and some of the other federal programs. I've taken over for Sandra Grant, who retired in June. I work with Tammy Long, and we work on all of the federal programs. So we just we've had some questions come up, and I know we've had meetings with some of you guys about some of the fiscal requirements that are out there. One of the things we wanted to talk about was time and effort. Time and effort is always required on all federal programs, so including McKinney Vento. Time and effort documentation needs to be uploaded into Utah grants. With your first reimbursement, we have to have all time and effort and all backup. So after that, then if it's a second one, we just need you to make sure you have time and effort. We've had some questions asking us some policies and examples. Every district is required to have time and effort policy out there.
I'm in one meeting right now. Okay.
Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. We might want to mute whoever's that I can hear so we don't interfere. Your district, if you don't know the Title I policy or the time and effort policies, you can talk to your Title I director. They're really familiar with time and effort. We also do have a sample of time and effort documentation in the Title I handbook on the USBE website. But every district, every LEA is required to have their own policy and have their own procedures on how this is worked. We just need to make sure it's being used in all federal programs. Okay, do you want to go to the next slide, Jeff? I don't know where. Okay. As we're talking about reimbursements, we will accept a general ledger as backup documentation for your reimbursement. The thing we have to have is we have to have detailed listing of expenses. We can't just have a journal entry where it transferred it into this account. We need the general ledger to be detailed enough to say who is being paid, what is being purchased. We have a lot of them that'll come say $500 at Amazon. We'd rather tell them exactly what we're buying. If you're buying shoes, if you're buying clothes, whatever it happens to be, just kind of list that out in your general ledger. If you don't want to do the detailed general ledger, you can just include receipts, and a lot of people do that. That is totally up to you. But we do need you to keep all receipts on file for auditing or monitoring purposes, and all the time and effort for the people who are paid in there. One of the changes that our fiscal unit is doing on our fiscal monitoring team is we are doing risk assessments based on LEA information. So there are a few things that they look at to decide your risk and what LEAs require monitoring. We do a regular schedule where we go to so many every year and try to get to everybody, but your risk assessment, some of the things it looks at is, do you have a new director in this? It's at looking for things where you might be at higher risk and need more help in making sure these funds are spent correctly. But one of them is timely reimbursements. I know we had a problem where we got a reimbursement that was almost from 3 years ago. And so when we find a problem that comes up that happened so long ago, it's kind of hard to correct the action when you've already been working on the program for the next 3 years. So we are looking at quarterly reimbursements if possible. Try to get these in and get them going. It does lower your risk because they're not huge reimbursements and they're more current. If there's a problem in it, we can correct the problem and then try to move forward. Okay, you want to go change one more slide for me, Jeff? Did I lose Jeff? Okay, there we go. Sorry. The other thing we wanted, we got it. The other thing we wanted to talk about, and I know that was brought up in some reimbursements this year in this program, were gift cards. We went back and asked the Department of Education for some guidance on this. And this is a slide that they had in their training for McKinney Vento. And so some of the things we brought this over, and the use of gift cards, store cards, or prepaid debit cards for a parent, guardian, or youth experiencing homelessness to purchase school clothing or hygiene supplies is allowable. They are not considered to be gifts, which are not allowed to be purchased through federal grants. You can, SEAs, LEAs, and programs can opt to not allow these methods due to elevated concern about fraud, waste, or abuse. And LEAs that allow the use of prepaid debit cards should have procedures to reduce the likelihood of fraud, for example, by asking receipts of items purchased with the gift cards. The department does not recommend that prepaid debit cards be the primary method for LEA's distribution needed supplies to all its students. We've talked a lot about this within the agency, and USBE does not have a current policy sitting out there to direct this. So we refer back to federal policy. As we've talked about this is we've talked about this in our group, and it is being brought up in finance, trying to get some more guidance from USBE on this whole subject, but the problem we're seeing in this is we've got to be able to back this up to the feds. So if we show them we sent these gift cards to Walmart and gave this kid a $25 gift card, we don't know what he purchased. And asking a student to bring back a receipt is not going to be very effective. So another problems we see in these is if he only spends $20 out of that 25, how do we account for the difference in the money? And so the gift cards are really tough. We don't have a problem with LEAs using them, but they have to have a way to have the receipts to back it up. Whether that means going to the store with them and collecting them, there's ideas out there, but it's a really tough line to hold to know where that we can do it and not do it. There are options out there that we've talked about, I know in the group, of getting stuff in there where you can buy like shoes and they can come pick them out, or if you all went to the store for a day. We know it requires more time and that's a hard thing for you guys to give up, but we've just got to be able to account for the money that's spent in the whole thing or have policies in place to get us there. I know that's a hard one, but if you guys want to do something like that, I'm more than happy to help you talk you through it to find a way that we can be sure that we've got the backup that we need. What we're trying to avoid is if they come back and ask us for backup and we don't have it, they do an audit on that, they will ask you guys to repay the money. And that's what we're trying to avoid, is to get in a place where they're going to come back after the state of Utah or the LEAs to reimburse funds that you don't have backup on. Do we have questions out there? Is there, I know it's clear as mud, but it's one of those that's kind of a really tough one. We're trying to stick to it. If you can't have receipts, the stand that we've taken in the physical group and all of the federal programs, if we don't have the receipts to back up, then they're not allowable.
So is that actually written in policy, or is that just something you guys have created?
They are
Federal policy.
It is federal policy right now. That is the federal policy out there, that we have to have the backup to it. What we're trying to do something within USBE to have a little more backup on our side and have this discussed and approved by our board. But at this point in time, we don't have anything. It is going back to straight federal regulations out of code.
Right, but you just presented this information that says they are allowed for this purpose, right? You said this was the slide that you got from the Department of Ed.
Right.
So these are allowed for these specific groups. And then it just does say that you have to reduce the likelihood. Examples could be asking for receipts. So I guess I'm just unclear because, again, as you said, it is time consuming to try and find, for a 15-year-old to bring back a receipt for the pair of shoes that he purchased. But he does show up in new shoes the next day. So I'm assuming he purchased the shoes, right? So again, it would be helpful to have some flexibility there because it's great if you're thinking you're working with 1 or 2 families, but when your reality is you've got 200 or 300 families. So going to Walmart, I mean, that sounds great. And if you want to attend a day like that, we certainly welcome you to do that. But that's just unrealistic, right? To think that we're going to take all the families shopping on the same day and we're going to have like a little party or something, that's just not reasonable. So just trying to figure out a way that we can get the services that we need to families in a way that is reasonable for everybody.
And we have discussed this, and I know they want to take it to the board to make a final thing on this, but as things stand right now, all we have is the federal regulations and the code to rely on. So I know it's a lot of work, but if you want to use gift card at this point in time, we're the only way we can mitigate the fraud and risk is to make sure we have the backup for these.
So can you forward that state code, that federal code you keep referring to? Because in here it doesn't say that. So that would be helpful.
Yes, we can send that out to you.
That'd be great.
Marilyn,
so-
have
oh,
you
sorry, go ahead.
have you checked with some of the other states to see, you know, their gift card policy is in, you know, the same dilemma?
You might.
You're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. One of the things we want to do as we're looking at this is seeing what other states do and how if they've made a policy on it versus a policy that they're just going back to the feds the same way. So as we research this and we decide what to do in Utah, we will do some research on that and yes, get more information out there.
Thank you. And I think Jeff could probably help with that a little bit too with his contacts.
Yes.
So it doesn't list gas cards here. I can see maybe there's other methods somewhere down the line that we can figure out the clothing thing. But for me, gas cards is a must to have gift cards for. I guess store cards could fit that if you're working with Smith's or something for gas, but I've been working with Shell, and I've been had really good luck with receipts coming back from families with that, because they need gas right now. They go directly, get the gas. A lot of times they come right back with the receipt, or if not, they bring it when
Okay.
gas again.
And gas, when you go through Shell, probably can, sorry, we've got somebody unmuted here. Gas is something that's probably a little bit easier to do that way if it's just Shell, because there really is nothing else they can do with that gas card but buy gas. When it's a Smith's card that they can go in and buy anything, it's a little bit harder to track that allowability factor. Because they can really go buy alcohol, they could buy cigarettes, they can buy anything they want with a Smith's card, or the parents can. So if it's something that's I think where this changed a little bit from where they had Payless, where they were sending them into Payless to get shoes, where there's really not much else you can get at Payless besides shoe products. So I think that's where it changed, going from that to like a generalized Walmart receipt where you could buy anything from games to, I mean, basically anything out there. So the gas is, I think if we were looking at it, trying to back it up, we'd have a little bit more something to stand on when we say, okay, we gave them a gas card, we get receipts back, but if you didn't have all of them, there's really nothing else they could buy. I think they would at least understand the difference between that. But it's one of those slippery slopes. Where is it? Where is the line you have to draw in this? And so we're trying to just protect you guys as much as possible and keeping the line in, saying, okay, we just need receipts to back up what you're doing. We understand gift cards are a good way to go, but we just have to have the backup there when you use them. And whether if you do a gift card and they don't spend it all, if they turn the gift card back into you, and where you could add money back to it and reuse it, or whatever it comes to be in your district, whatever makes sense to you guys, we will back you up there. We just need the backup to get there until if a decision is made further by our board that we're going to change the way we do that.
Has there been policy presented to the board yet, or are they just having conversation?
Right now, it's just in conversation. This is one we've got out there to go, but we're trying to gather some information and go through. I will go through and send you some of the policies that we follow on the federal regs on what has to be done on those, and make sure that goes out to you. But we're in conversations right now. It has not went to the board yet.
So I probably should know this, but does USB have a financial, like, is there a group of the board that makes up a financial committee, or is it the whole board?
No, there is a finance committee that it goes to first, and then anything that changes like this would go to the whole board, but it would start out in finance committee.
And is that, sorry to keep asking questions. Is that published on the board website? Or can you send us the names of those people on the finance committee so we know who to advocate with?
I have to look them up.
I was gonna say I could look it up and
If it's on the,
see who's on.
if it's on the website, I can find it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question to some of the other liaisons? So when you're working with, like Connie, I know you work with a gas station. So when you're working specifically with these gas stations, because we just do Smith's cards, which I know is really problematic, but I've had a hard time conceptualizing how to, like, are you guys working with one particular gas station, or is it a gas company, or how are you guys doing that? Because I would love to be able to transfer over to working with a gas station, but we're pretty big, and so that could be challenging. So how are you guys doing that?
Let me say it is challenging. We do work with Sinclair, but then you get into sole source problems with our purchasing department. I've tried to work with that. I work with Sinclair because it's right across the street on 7th West from the road home, where most of my gas cards are given out. I have a good working relationship with Sinclair downtown office and the stations. I know Mike in Salt Lake's had trouble with Sinclair, but I haven't. And I happen to know the clerks, and if somebody tries to do something fraudulent, they're texting me or calling me right away. Having said that, there's a lot of Sinclair gas stations, and I can't necessarily control which one they go to. However, most of my folks are using Sinclair on 7th West, and I do have a relationship with them. So I know right away if somebody's tried to fraud.
So so it's not just one particular gas station, but you can do a Sinclair, which is all of the gas stations in the city. Gotcha.
And I can't know all Sinclair gas clerks valley-wide, but the majority of them are out of gas when they need gas, and they go right to these central stations. And it hasn't been I rarely get a call because they have to go inside and prepay like cash with them. They can't put them in the pump. So that clerk knows that they come from me and they're for $20 for gas only. But I do have it fixed, so they have to go prepay inside.
The only problem we had with Sinclair was that they were just closing Sinclair stations. So we have like 3 in the city, which didn't make it feasible. Whereas Smith's, there were more of them. So that was our biggest issue with Sinclair, was just there was 2 stations that were pretty central that both closed. So just the lack of Sinclair stations made it challenging for us.
And then my problem with Sinclair is you get into having a sole source provider, and that causes your purchasing department a bunch more work, and yourself.
Thank you all. Mary Lee, there's a question on the chat, and I'll just read it out to you. So are you saying we need receipts back from gas cards then, is the question?
If it's a Smith's card like that, yes, we want receipts back on it. If it's gas, I would take, if it was gas from like that in Sinclair, I'd try to get everything I could, because it's still the best answer to have the backup behind them. If it's something that was only that and you missed and you didn't, I think it would be a little bit easier when it's just one thing they can buy there. But I'd still try to get receipts for everything I could. It's just going to cover your butt, and which is what we're trying to do. Make sure that you guys are safe in this whole thing also.
Thank you, Mary Lee. Are there any additional questions or anything else? Or are we ready to move forward? Okay,
So,
if any questions do come up. Oh, Mike?
I guess just out there to the other liaisons, as far as getting clothing, shoes, coats, those kind of things for your students, what other methods do you use besides gas or gift cards?
So I have something that I started this year with our local Walmart. I was able to do a voucher program with them, and it's strictly just our local Tooele Walmart. Walmart restricted our families to only shopping on Wednesdays between the hours of 3 and 8 p.m. And I have security, like kind of fraud-proof paper that we print our vouchers on. and I give those out to the families, and then they can go and shop and get what they need. In return from that, I also get the voucher back plus the receipt, and you can scan the receipt and have every single item that they purchased come up. And then we have in place that if a family uses them fraudulently, the amount of money that they used fraudulently will be charged back to their student account. We don't anticipate ever getting it back, but it's still just a little bit of security for us there. And that's only been going on for me for about a month or two now. So I'm really excited to have that opportunity to offer that to my families. Takes less storage, takes less of my time, gives the family a little bit of pride and, you know, ability to go try on clothes, to be able to pick out He-Man underwear instead of, you know, lollipops or something. So I love that we can do that. It did take quite a process for me to get that going with our local Walmart. We had to go kind of higher up in the food chain with them. But now that it's going, I think it's great. So I would recommend that you guys try to get a partnership with somebody close by you. Maybe even if there's a Walmart down there that you can kind of pony off of our idea. And maybe that'll help you guys with some of this too.
Can you
Anyway, that's just what we do.
the chat that manager's name from Tooele?
So the manager's name from Tooele is Sean, and it's S-H-O-N. And he's worked, so I worked through Sean, and then I was able to have him work through his, I guess it'd be like his area director. And so, yeah, it's an ongoing process. It's a really good deal. I'm more than happy to share like my voucher with you guys, the security paper. I'm happy to share anything you want if that helps you guys out.
Please do.
Okay.
I'm seeing a lot of heads nod, Laura, so I think everybody's interested in seeing that voucher. If you could send it to Renee, we can get it out to everybody when we send out documents for the meeting.
Okay, I can do that.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions regarding this topic? No? All right. Well, thank you, Mary Lee, once again for being with us and helping us out to wade through this. We'll certainly look forward to hearing how things move forward with that as it goes to the board. So thanks very much. All right. So moving on then in our meeting. We'll go over now to liaison responsibilities and discuss what those are. As soon as I can change this presentation here. Great. So as part of our McKinney Vento group, you know that there is McKinney Vento funding, and I just wanted to clarify what that funding was for this year, because we do have 3 different pots and which funding is coming from. And if you are McKinney Vento receiving district, then that kind of simplifies things for you. If you aren't, then there's really only the Title I homeless set-aside funds that are available to you, as well as any Arp Hcy2 funds as we go through this application process that will be coming out. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But let me just clarify. There's the general McKinney Vento Fund. That is a 3-year cycle funding application that's required from you to USBE. The last application process just closed in July of this year. So we are starting our very first year in the 3-year cycle. Okay. Those funds, again, are allotted to districts who apply for them, and those applications are due once every 3 years. Arp Hcy2 Funds is a pot of money. It was just over $1 million that was set aside for the state of Utah, and it's a part of the stimulus package that came through. If you didn't hear, homelessness across the United States received over $800 million. And a part of that came to Utah. The Arp Hcy2 funds are the first part of that, Okay? And if you are a McKinney Vento receiving district, that is, you receive McKinney Vento funds because your district applied for those funds, then the Arp Hcy2 funds were meant to supplement those districts. So you automatically got a percentage of that, and it was actually based on the percentage of what your district or charter receives for Title I. So the formula was the Title I formula. If your LEA, as an example, received 15% of Title I funds, then you would receive 15% of that $1 million. Okay. It was just standard formula. There was nothing to do, no application required. It was just simply McKinney Vento fund receiving districts were receiving those Arp Hcy2 funds. Okay. And you should have access to those already. There shouldn't be any issue with anybody. If you do have an issue or you haven't been able to access them for some reason, please let me know. We can have that conversation one-on-one. Okay. The other pot, the third pot here is the Arp Hcy2 funds. And we're in the process of working that out to get those out. There's a holdup because there is a requirement under the law that states that if an LEA receives less than $5,000, that they have to join a consortium. And when we sent out letters of intent earlier this year, there were a few schools, a few charters specifically, that requested those funds or said that they were interested in getting those funds, but they all received less than 5,000. And so I'm in the process of communicating with them. I've heard back from half of them and waiting for the other half to hear back as to whether they want to actually use those funds and join a consortium to be able to access them, or to just simply waive them, in which case all that money would go back into the general pot and would be redistributed out to LEAs that are wanting to use those funds and are able to access them. So that's where we're at in that process now. I hope to be done with that by the end of this week. But again, I'm still waiting on some charters to get back to me in regards to what they want to do. So they're going through their process with their boards to decide and make sure that the decision they make is the appropriate one for them. But that's where that pot of money is sitting. Okay. Again, I just want to remind you also that if you are a Title I receiving school or LEA, there is a requirement under Title I that there is a homeless set aside. And generally what that is, or the amount that is your per pupil times the amount of homeless students that you counted for the previous year. And that would be the minimum that's required for you to hold till the end of that year. And then I'm not sure, some districts, I think, just keep that as a pot, and if it gets used completely, it gets used. If it doesn't get used, it rolls over to the next. But I'm not sure how everybody's doing that because we've not had those discussions. Mike, did you want to say something?
Well, it's not set aside. I mean, it's not held, it's used. I mean, it's set aside from the top of the Title I budget. But
Right.
it's not it's just sitting there. It's being used.
Yeah.
I think in all cases.
Yeah, I don't mean to say that it's just there and nobody touches it. I just mean it's specifically set aside for that purpose. And then I don't know if you use half of that budget as an example, or 3/4 of that budget, I'm not sure how long that sits for you, except for the definition of the funds, which is the 30th of September to the following year, right? So you guys all have access to that. If you're a Title I receiving LEA, you have that available to you as well. Any questions about any of that before we move on?
Jeff, can you repeat the formula that you use or Title I uses?
Yeah, so the general formula that we ask people to follow is that you use whatever your LEA per pupil is times your count of homeless students for the previous year.
Is it?
That would be the minimum.
So let me clarify, because I don't think it's your total homeless, right? It's your homeless at non-Title I schools. Because the set aside is meant to support McKinney Vento students at non-Title I schools, right? Because you're already getting, well, at least that's how I understood it. So our formula is based on the number of McKinney Vento students at non-Title I schools, which is what the set aside is meant to support.
It can actually support both. So it can go to schools that do receive Title I, but it can also go to schools that do not receive Title I, based on your needs.
And when you're saying pure pupil, are you saying the pure per pupil Title I allocation, or just in general?
It's a general. It's not specifically tied to your Title I allotment.
So Jeff, is that the WPU, the 3,000-ish or 2,900, whatever it is this magical year?
That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. I've always heard it stated as the per pupil, but I'll look into that and make sure that it is what it is. I've always used the per pupil term, just to not confuse anything, but I'll look into that and make sure, see if it's a WPU or not.
Yeah, I would love to know what number you're basing it off of. Is it $1,000, $3,000, $100? That helps me get an idea of the size of the budget that's sitting there. Or
Well,
should be.
I'm sorry, it's my understanding that LEAs have a set per pupil that they receive, right? Or am I wrong in that?
Jeff, can I interject a little bit?
Yeah,
just what I know from Title I. This is Robin Clement from Cache County School District.
Hey, Robin.
If you work with your Title I director or coordinator, there's a whole process of ranking the schools and then deciding how much you're going to pay per pupil, and then that's allocated back out to each school. And that's the number that you're going to use to determine like the baseline for your homeless set aside, which you're right, can be used for any homeless student. And so we always up that by a couple of thousand just so that we're covered if we have some big needs. But they should have that per pupil allocation that has to be recorded in the grant and the DMI. So the person who's doing that for your district will have that number.
Thanks, Robin.
So that has nothing to do with WPU. That's something that you Robin, if I'm understanding you correctly, that's a formula your district puts together based on how they're allocating their title funds per school.
That is correct. It's not.
So it has nothing to do with WPU.
Don't confuse it with a WPU.
That was my question. I was thinking per pupil, because the per pupil is weighted. That has nothing to do with that one. It has to do with once you get your title funds in your district, you weight and rank, and then there's a dollar figure. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Perfect. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. All right, any additional questions on any of that? All right, so moving on then, your LEAs must continue the child's education, right, in the school of origin for the duration of homelessness and for the remainder of the academic year. Okay, so I just want to clarify, because we've had some questions come up in regards to how long a student is considered McKinney Vento. Let me repeat for all of you. Your year officially starts with 0 students. Okay, and even though you may have students that carry over and are still continuing in their McKinney Vento status for this year, the way that students are counted is that you start with 0 at the beginning of the year, and every year you're reviewing and ensuring that students that are determined McKinney Vento continue to be and meet the definition of McKinney Vento. And so the services that are provided to them are available for the remainder of an academic year. So if between the time school started and now you've had a student that has gone through a homelessness situation and somehow they've been able to clear that up, those services continue until the remainder of the end of the academic year, at which time they would no longer qualify for your McKinney Vento services, and they would not count for the coming year. And again, we've had a few questions come up this year in regards to that, so I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Enrollment for a child in a homeless situation is immediate, should always be immediate. There's no question about that. If there's any question at all regarding the homeless or whether a student meets the definition of McKinney Vento or not, during that time period in which you're trying to figure that out, that student needs to be fully participating and enrolled in school and school activities. There should be nothing holding that student back from fully participating. And as things unfold and you're able to decipher whether they actually meet that definition or not, then you make a determination as to what happens next. But the law is very specific, very clear. Full enrollment and full participation should happen for any student in which there may be a question about homelessness or not. School of origin. So the reason for McKinney Vento specifically is to create some form of academic stability for the student, to be able to ensure that they continue on in their academic growth with as little hindrance as possible. And so a part of the law is specific to keeping kids in the school of origin if that is determined as what's best for the student. It may not be the case. It may be that you have an elementary student that is going to end up traveling an hour and a half each way, and it's just not feasible to be able to do that with a first or second grader, whatever the case might be. So when ideally the school of origin is where you want to keep that student, but if for some reason it's not in the student's best interest to do that, then it's a determination based on conversations between you and the parent or guardian in regards to what's best for that student. And again, it only pertains to that academic year, or as long as the student meets the definition of McKinney Vento and their situation is that. Again, you want to keep the student's best interest in mind, and so that's going to pose some interesting challenges, and I think it has this year in regards to how to handle that. In the past, and the reason that I'm talking about that is specifically the transportation piece, right? Because if you have a student who is going to be kept in the school of origin, but they're living in a shelter or they're living in a place that's outside of the current district, then that's going to raise obviously some flags for you and some concerns in transportation. And I know there have been questions in regards to that. Utah has always been a state where if there was a need for that kind of conversation or a need for that type of service, that the LEAs in question would just simply split that difference for the costs of what that transportation would be. And there's no reason to change that, but I wanted to make sure again that everybody was aware of that. It's kind of been the standard operating procedure for us here in Utah. And so far that hasn't been an issue.
So can I clarify?
Yes.
That's not just a Utah thing, that's a federal thing, but who determines the cost?
You mean either the sending district or the receiving district? Is that the question?
Right. So like one district may utilize one procedure and the other district says, well, we don't do that. That's not something we do. So how do you work that out then when they're not wanting to cooperate with the current plan, right?
So you would always have one district that is going to be putting that plan in place, right? And then you're asking, I guess, for reimbursement in regards to that cost.
Right.
So what I have seen is that the district that is receiving, that is the district that is the school of origin, works out what the best transportation process might be. And then that's a conversation between the two districts to come to terms with. The only times that I have been involved in those conversations is when there's been an issue between the two. But honestly, I can tell you that's only happened a couple of times, and it was resolved in conversation as to how those costs would be split. I'm not sure I'm answering your question, Mike.
Well, I think you know the issue, right? And I'm happy to just bring it up if people are okay with that.
Sure.
So
I'm happy you bring it up, Mike, but you can't use the word not cooperate. We have to use the word in Davis School District of what you are asking us to do was against state policy. So it wasn't cooperating we weren't willing to do. It was the fact that we don't do gas cards.
which isn't against state policy. We just clarified that, right?
Well, when I called Jeff, it was against state policy. Correct, Jeff?
That's correct. Yeah, we had had that discussion. Okay. So, so there are a couple of things that I think come to light in that. And the first is it's my understanding in having that conversation with both of you that what was being asked for was not the purchase of those gift cards, but a reimbursement for the transportation, regardless of what that transportation would have been, and whether that would have been gas cards or whether that would have been school transportation that you were asking to get reimbursed or partially reimbursed for, whatever the case that might be.
Right.
Is that reimbursement, there was nothing hindering that reimbursement because of the issue. But I do understand, Jody, that in your district, the policy has been, because of our conversations, right, that gift cards weren't the best way to do that, and weren't allowed. Because that's a conversation that we had as well. Again, to try to clear up these issues of receipts and all of the things that we spoke of when we spoke with Marilee. So there wouldn't be an issue in terms of reimbursement for transportation because.
Correct. So if he sends us the receipt and splits it 50-50 on the gas card, not just a bill, because I have to have receipts as well that say, I don't just send money for transportation. I have to account for how that transportation money was received and used. So as long as any school district sends me a receipt, a copy of the receipt and says split it 50-50, we can do that. But that wasn't the conversation that happened.
Well, there's an assumption that we're using federal money, which we're not, to purchase gas receipts. So within.
But I am.
So, and there was, the option certainly was to provide another option, which I didn't hear back from you on. So if there's another option, we're certainly open to that.
Well, that's not a very fair statement either, because I called Jeff and asked him to mediate this, and I hadn't heard back from Jeff. And I said to Jeff, I wouldn't reach out to you till I heard back from him. So in fairness, after you had reached to Jeff, I didn't reach back to you as per a conversation with the state.
Right, and I didn't reach out to Jeff. I just emailed you guys and CC'd Jeff because there seemed to be some concern about, you know, wanting the student to change schools because you felt like 20 minutes was too long for them to be on a bus. But Jeff, you know, so that's, I think, unreasonable for us to make that decision. If the family chooses to have that child attend that school of origin, that is their right to do
I don't think everybody on the meeting needs to hear our conversation. I just didn't want you throwing us under saying we weren't willing to cooperate. What was asked of us didn't meet the requirements that I could fulfill. I called Jeff asking for some mediation on it, hadn't heard back, so therefore I didn't get back involved in this. Everybody doesn't need to know the dirty, nor do they have the time for it. You and I can do a sidebar conversation following this, and I'm happy to help you out. But we didn't not cooperate. What you asked for, I called and asked for clarification from the state, and I cannot do that. So there's a little bit of difference in that, and I just wanted to be clear on that one.
Yeah. So the conversation, Jody, that we had, unfortunately had to get, I wasn't able to get in touch with Mike until yesterday. And so that's why I hadn't gotten back in touch with you. So I apologize for that. But we will have this conversation. I'm happy to be a part of it and happy to ensure that everybody's on the same page and there are no issues. Okay. So anyway, in regards to transportation, okay. School of origin then is a priority, and again, if it's found that it's not in the best interest of the student, then something else needs to be worked out. Or the local school, excuse me, is where the student should be attending. Sorry, I'm trying to.
I have a question about that, about the gas cards and all the stuff.
Yeah, Laura.
So I think one of the biggest concerns that my district had is that when it comes down to the student count in October, so for example, so Mike and I are working on a similar situation, obviously we're in the very beginning stages of that. And I respect what he's trying to do and vice versa. But my district has said, well, Salt Lake County School District, for example, has already received the funding for that student. And I get that, that's kind of where they're coming from as far as student count and money, because then what happens, is if we have to reimburse for transportation for a student that doesn't go to our district that's been counted in another district that gets that funding, then my students that could use it are not getting the services that they need. Now, is it thousands of dollars? No, it's not. It could be, and we hope it doesn't get to that point, but how would you address that? What would you say to, say, my directors in that situation who has that concern?
So I would refer them back to the law that states specifically that when you have a kid traveling from one district to another, that needs to be shared, that the cost needs to be shared. I do understand the concern in regards to funding for that student. We're not talking about a huge amount of students. I don't know that that's happening on it. I know that it's happening between districts. I don't know that there's a huge number of students that are in that situation between districts or between the same districts. Let me say it that way. So if that were an issue and that would need something, would need for me to look into further, then I'd be happy to do that. We could have that conversation. But the law is pretty clear in regards to that when it comes to sharing the cost for homeless students. So
And
that
Jeff,
would be the first place. Connie?
This is Connie, and I just wanted to, from Canyons District, I appreciate the other liaisons stepping up and helping me, because quite often with that big shelter in Midvale, I have students in every district, and Canyons cannot bear that burden by themselves. We are running school buses to other districts currently, but I have to say as a whole, especially in Salt Lake County, the other liaisons are very good to step up and share the cost or take the cost for their children. This morning, I had 188 school children in there, going all over the place.
Yeah, I think Connie's our big exception to that, where she's sending kids everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And like I say, I have students in Alpine District right now, and because they're not Salt Lake County, what's going to happen is they're attending Alpine District, then Alpine District will bill Canyons, and we will certainly pay our share.
I was just going to add, I think I've talked to a lot of the liaisons this year, and I think we're all, things are just really unique with the pandemic. And I think that my experience has been, I know Canyons is kind of the exception here, but I know my kids are really spread out a lot more than they have been in years past. And so I think if we can continue to collaborate and continue to have these conversations, because it's not going to end, right? I think this is going to come up probably a lot more now than maybe it has in the past, just because they're so spread out and because they're experiencing some really significant hardships, maybe even more so because they're having to travel a lot farther than they have in the past. And so I think it's really important that we continue to have these conversations and figure out how we can collaborate, because it's not going to end.
Yeah.
So
and maybe now's the time to start looking at that in more detail, since the need is greater and we have more of these situations coming up. I mean, I don't foresee that they'll somehow just stop, right? I mean, the way things are going and the way housing is getting more expensive, just ridiculously expensive, I think we'll continue to see this. So it's definitely something that we'll look into and continue to work on as a group to come to terms with how we can best handle that. But again, that's how it's been handled in the past, and we'll look at how we can best handle it in the future. Just a reminder that you should be giving families and their students a written explanation for the reasons of their whatever gets decided in terms of transportation. So if it's best to keep that student in the school of origin, if it's best to have them go to the local school because of their situation, there should be something that you're handing to the family that states specifically how that determination was made and who was involved. And that covers yourselves as well as lets the family know that they've been through that process. And it is a requirement, just so you know. In the case of an unaccompanied homeless youth, the local liaison assists in placement and enrollment decisions and gives priority to the views of the youth and provides notice to the right to appeal that, which would come to me if there's any kind of appeal that needs to be taken. But again, unaccompanied homeless youth do have the right to make that choice, and you're there to support them. Just as a reminder, as liaisons, I know you all do it, so it's speaking to the choir, but I do want to make sure that everybody hears it and that you guys feel that you have that right as well. When you have a student that is homeless come to you as the liaison, you are the student's advocate, and for lack of a better way of saying it, sometimes you guys are the only ones that know that student's situation, and you are the best person that can advocate for that student. So I just want to encourage you to keep that in mind. Not that you forget it, but it's okay to state it to the people that you are working with, whether that's an administrator or another district person. You are that student's advocate. And that's actually something that, again, is written out in the McKinney Vento Act as well as under ESSA. The expectation is that you then are, once you've identified that student as McKinney Vento, you are the person to help them weed through all of the difficulties that may come up for them and try to facilitate their education, make it as easy for them to continue as it is for anybody else. So again, just wanted to make sure that that's stated out loud and everybody hears that. So again, as part of your grants, as part of being part of the McKinney Vento group, the liaison is the primary contact between homeless families, school, staff, shelters, and any service providers that might need, that the student might need help and support from. Again, as part of the law, under the liaison's responsibilities, you're responsible for ensuring that students are identified, that you are coordinating and doing outreach with any of the community services that might be necessary for those students, that students are enrolled in and have full and equal participation in school. And again, I'll remind you that that's immediate, even if there's a question about the status. And students should be receiving all services that they would be eligible for. So Head Start, any early intervention programs, any type of supports that are offered to any other students. There should be nothing hindering your McKinney Vento student from participation. And that includes if there's a cost that that is incurred because of that, your Title I fund, homeless set aside, your grant money, if that's available to you, any of the Arp Hcy funds, whether it's one or two, can be used to help support students in that as well. As part of the law, you're not required to take these families or these students to any of the outside services, but you are required to make them aware of the services that are available to them. And there are several districts that have just like a one-page handout that lists group of services. I encourage you to kind of work that out in your community so that you have that available to your families and you can hand that to them. In most cases, I know most of you actually get in touch with those organizations, have them get in touch with the families, and you kind of watch out for that when that's possible. That's great. But again, that's not always possible, understanding your numbers and the number of students you're working with. So you should have something that's available to them that would list the community services that might be available to them or that they might be in need of, and be able to grant that to them. And all of your kids should be informed about their opportunities in school, and they shouldn't be held back or shouldn't be hindered because of their homeless status or situation. Everything that's made available to all of your students should be made available to your homeless kids. And again, anything that would incur a fee or have some kind of cost attached to it should be covered. There should be nothing hindering that student from full participation and full access to the activities that are going on at school. Public notice of educational rights for homeless kids is important as well. In the past, we've had NCHE posters that we've gotten for you. And Renee, I'm wondering if we can do that again this year, is that we can collect some and then get them out to you. Renee, is that something you can help us do?
Yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, thanks.
Yes, I have some already also from last year.
Oh, fantastic.
Ordered for this year, and that'll give us even more we can get out to you.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind taking care of that, that would be great. So get in touch with Renee if you would like some of those posters. We'll get them out to you, and we'll order as many as we need to. They do need to be disseminated or placed in locations that are frequented by parents and kids, unaccompanied youth. So that includes schools, includes shelters, includes public libraries, soup kitchens, any place where you feel that a student or their family might reside or might spend time in. They should be able to find that information or see that around in your area. So you want to make sure that that gets taken care of as well. And that's also a part of the roles and responsibilities for liaisons. We talked briefly about disputes, but if there are any disputes, then you come to me, and ideally I would get to them in a timely fashion. Again, I apologize to Jody and Mike for not doing that sooner. Back to transportation, just making sure that transportation school of origin, if that's required, gets worked out. In some cases, it's not between two districts. In some cases, it's between two school areas within the same LEA. That should be worked out, and I think those are a little bit easier. Those that work with students or that work with McKinney Vento kids should be trained, and so as part of your support for those students, there should be some training coming from you in regards to how to work with or meet the needs of homeless kids in your area. There is also the right to privacy for our students. So in some cases, I know there are schools or LEAs, excuse me, where the only person that knows that that a student is a McKinney Vento student is the person sitting in your chair, the liaison, and anyone else that they might notify of. That doesn't necessarily mean that in a secondary, as an example, all of the student's teachers are aware that that student is McKinney Vento. That's up to your discretion as to how you provide supports for that student and who needs to be involved and know what that situation is for that kid. But you want to make sure that you're keeping the right to privacy, but at the same time offering them the supports and letting the people that can offer those supports to the students know that those students are in need. Goes without saying also that the services that are offered to kids help them access education in a way that anyone that is not McKinney Vento would be able to access. So there should be no difference. Should not be singled out. It should not be set aside purely for the sake of being McKinney Vento or because they are McKinney Vento. If there are literacy needs and there are supports for students that have those needs, then McKinney Vento students should be included in that. If there is preschool that is meant to help support at-risk students, then McKinney Vento students should be a part of that. There shouldn't be any discrepancy between a McKinney Vento student and a non. And there should be no way to really identify them other than they may need additional supports that you as the liaison are aware of. Just wanted to remind you also the term McKinney Vento is stated within the law as a requirement to be the term used when you're working, simply because we don't want kids or other students to identify homeless students. We want to keep their privacy. And so the term McKinney Vento is meant to be used as a way to kind of help support that and keep other students from identifying homeless students. Just be aware of that. It is in the law, and I just, again, wanted to make sure that you were all aware. Again, comparable services. Kids need the same services, the same education services as any other kid, and the goal is to create access for them and to remove barriers that might be in the way because of their homeless situation. We've talked about working with the other agencies around in your area to help support kids, but it includes runaway and homeless kids as well, so just be aware of that. And then identification. And I know you all have various ways of identifying students, and identification happens throughout the year as you get to meet other students, you get to meet other students or hear about other students, or you may hear from staff members that there's a possibility that a student might be homeless. Your role and the role of those that work with you should be to have those discussions with those students in terms of what the actual situation is to determine what would be best for them. And if they are McKinney Vento, then immediately provide those services that are required under the law. Are there any questions about any of that? I know we kind of went through quite a bit there. So this concludes my presentation in regards to McKinney Vento and training. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be funny, but I guess it's not a funny meeting. I appreciate you guys very much for all that you do, guys. I know it's difficult. I know we have challenges that we face, and I know that you guys see that far more than I do. You know staff members that you work with that are on the front line with our kids, and I know that you guys are those people as well. And so I cannot thank you enough for the work that you do. I'm really sincere about that. I know you guys bend over backwards sometimes to try to make things happen for kids and try to remove those barriers. It's always a challenge, and it's always an uphill battle. So I fully recognize the work that you do, and I want to make sure that you're aware that I do. But on the flip side, or the more important side, is I know that your kids see that too, and that's really of utmost value. So I really appreciate all of you. I'm not going to keep you any longer. we kind of went through all of what I had to go through with you today. I will be on though, and I will stay online as long as there are questions or people want to have any discussions. I'm happy to take the time to answer any questions that you may have now. So I'll open up for questions.
Jeff, can I just do a shout out to Mike Carr? It was a great article in the Deseret News last week. And I think that's an issue that is certainly in our district as well, where we're missing a bunch of McKinney Vento students. So thanks, Mike. You always do a great job speaking on behalf of the rest of us. Nice job.
Yes, Mike, that was excellent.
So I have a question, Jeff, on the ARP HCY1 funding.
Yes.
Is there, I think you may have already sent us ways we can spend that money. Is it just similar to the normal funding that we get through the grant?
Yes. So it's meant to be supplemental to that grant. So all of the rules that apply to the grant apply to it as well. And I did send out a document. Gosh, I can't remember who it was by, but it did list allowable uses for those funds. And if you'd like, Mike, I can send that to you directly a little bit later on today.
Yeah, I probably have it, but if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'm
yeah,
getting old and I lose things and I can't see, I can't hear.
And I'm having such a hard time sorting through emails lately and trying to figure out who I've responded to and who I haven't. It's been a challenge, so I get you.
So I just have two questions, and I'm hoping you guys can help me. So one, it pertains to that funding as well. If we are, when we are applying for that grant, if we don't specify every single thing we would like to purchase with that grant, does that mean we cannot use it for something? And is that grant supposed to be for 2 years, or are we extending it to 3? Like, how are we figuring out that yearly amount?
Are you speaking of? Arp Hcy2
It's the, I don't know, it's the second one. It's not like the normal one that we get. It's the additional one.
Okay, so Arp Hcy2 is a one-time fund.
Okay.
Arp Hcy2 is also a one-time fund, but that's spread over 3 years.
Okay, so we're doing 3 years. Okay.
But that's Arp Hcy2. Arp Hcy1 is a one-time pot of money that was granted to LEAs that were receiving McKinney Vento funds already.
Okay.
But that has a 2-year time limit too, doesn't it, Jeff?
Yes, it does. So it follows your regular federal money guidelines, which means you have until the 30th of September, 2 years after it's been given, to encumber and use those funds.
Okay, and then from there it goes back, whatever money's left over from LEAs that didn't get spent goes back into that general pot, right?
Yeah, if it hasn't been encumbered by you guys at our office, then we have to send whatever money is left over back.
Okay, so the point is we definitely want to make sure we're using it and not giving anything back, right?
Yeah,
and then
ideally we're not sending anything back because we want the funds, right?
Awesome. And then, so specifically pertaining to that, then when we're applying for this grant, again, do I, like, if I want to use it for certain things that obviously are allowable, but maybe there's something that is allowable and I miss when writing the grant, if I don't have that one piece that's missed in the grant, does that mean I wouldn't legally then be able to spend that money on that?
No, you can make adjustments.
General blanket statement.
Yeah, no, you can make adjustments, so it wouldn't be you wouldn't be tied down to just what was in the grant and then that's it. You will be able to make updates, changes, so that your budget matches what you're really expending on.
Okay, just because my administrator is telling me that if we don't list it in the grant, then I can't spend any money on it. So even if it's something like comes back later, they're like, nope, you can't do that. You can only spend what's in the grant that we wrote in. So I want to make sure that that's something that is got some flexibility with it, or
yeah, you wouldn't have any issue unless it's something far out in left field that has absolutely nothing to do with what you've stated, right? But as long as it's meant to support the goals that you've set up for whatever funds you're going to be using, then you wouldn't have any issue. And then even then, it's something that we could talk about to work out with our finance office and our finance people to make sure that there's no issue, and we'd be able to approve it.
Okay.
So
Okay,
if
thank you so much.
if anything like that does come up, please let me know. We can talk about it one-on-one.
Okay, and then I do have one more question. I'm so sorry to keep everybody because I know people want to go. My question is, how do other districts handle a situation where you have a student who is McKinney Vento? Like you say, you are their advocate, so you're helping them, you're supporting them, and there's a situation that arises, maybe something due to like a sexual, nature of some sort, some abuse. Do other districts or has anybody else had it to where administrators then kind of take over and you are no longer allowed in any meetings or in the group or allowed to be like in the know of what's happening to your students? Because that's kind of a situation that I'm dealing with currently. And so I just want to make sure like, this particular student would like me there, but I'm being told I can't be there because I don't have a counseling degree. So I'm just curious how other districts are handling that, or if you guys have been faced with similar situations. I guess crickets.
I haven't had a situation like that, so I don't know. I haven't not been included in meetings if I've been asked to be. I mean, if I've asked to attend, I've always been allowed to attend. So, but I haven't had a situation like that where there's been like if they have a safe school hearing or whatever, I've been, invited to be there as the McKinney Vento liaison. So I haven't had the experience of not being included.
Okay. Anybody else?
I think we've really set the precedence that we want to be a part of those meetings as much as we can. And so schools, I mean, oftentimes if they know they're McKinney Vento, I'm one of the first people that they'll call. So I think it's really just about, maybe as you're training and doing some of that work, it's really about setting that stage of like, hey, we can be a resource to the family, to the students. We'd really love to be a part of this, and here's why it's helpful for us to be a part of that. So I think that might be my suggestion. But yeah, schools really want us to be a part of those meetings because I think we can offer lots of unique support. So.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, will you answer the question about schools asking students to prove residency if they're McKinney Vento, such as if they're doubled up with another family?
I'm looking through the chat here. Kind of give me one sec. Can schools ask parents who are doubling up for proof of address? Okay. So under McKinney Vento, enrollment happens immediately, right? And following up, school district has a right to ask for certain documentation. However, if they're doubling up, I would question how are they going to verify that? Like, unless somebody actually physically goes and sees them, I wouldn't know if there's documentation to support.
In my mind, the problem with asking them to prove residency is you could create homelessness, because if a family's doubled up,
right,
say in an apartment, then both families can be evicted. And so schools asking them to prove residency creates a barrier to enrollment and can create homelessness. I've seen that happen.
Yeah, that's correct. That's always that's a tricky one for sure, because you don't want to cause that issue. But let's see, was it Hilda, I guess, Hilda and Melinda, that were asking that question? Can you give us a little bit more about how or why the question came up, or?
Well, the question came up to me is because Hilda and I have been going back and forth about it. And I have to say, in Canyons, when I train, if we want to eliminate barriers, and I tell them they cannot ask for proof of residency. Yeah,
I mean, there's no. So yeah, McKinney Vento actually specifically states that if someone is McKinney Vento, they're identifying themselves as such, that is that they are in a homeless situation and they are doubled up or they are anywhere, that there is no proof of, there is no, a school cannot ask for proof for that because of that very reason, I would assume. But it is in the law to be able to have the allowance to not ask for that. Does that make sense?
They can ask, can't require it. So
yeah, thank you.
Okay, request and not require. So that becomes a question, a problem at the road home at Midvale, because frequently we'll have schools from other districts, potentially as well as my own district, call the shelter and they will request proof that they're living in a shelter. We absolutely do not have time, do not give that out. And I always refer whatever school is calling back to the liaison in that district.
In that district, yeah.
But that has become a problem at the road home in Midvale, where we have other schools calling, wanting us to verify that the family is in fact living at the road home, and we will not do that. And I refer the schools back to their own liaison for that information. And then if the liaison calls me, for sure, I'll share with them.
Yeah, yeah. Yep. And I think that's a reason also for the privacy rule that we mentioned earlier, is that it is a protection for kids as well as a privacy issue, but also a protective measure to not incur any other issues that might come up because of the homeless status.
So a little bit related to that, I'll have a lot of our secretaries push an unaccompanied youth who's couch surfing for an address, you know, for our student information system. And I have just told them to use the school district office for an address if they have to have something. Is that in line with rules?
Yeah, yeah, that wouldn't be an issue. I mean, you're protecting the student's privacy there. And then you as the liaison, ideally, you would have contact with them to be able to get them any information that they needed to, or whatever the case might be. So yeah, you're good there, Mike, I think.
Schoolhouse Connection puts out a great technical tool on FERPA and homelessness and how students who are experiencing homelessness are even more protected under FERPA. And I've used that with trainings with my school staff, and that's been very helpful.
Connie, could you send me that and I can get it out to everybody? If you
Sure.
don't mind sending that to Renee, that'd be great. I think I saw a few heads nodding. I think people will be interested in seeing that. Any other questions? All right. Well, then I will let you go. Again, I'll stick around if there's any questions that somebody wants to ask me without the rest of the group being around. But other than that, thank you guys for all that you do. You guys are really amazing. Yes, Mike. I see you wanting to speak.
Spring, are we having another meeting this year, or is this it?
Yes, we will have a spring meeting. I don't have a date for it yet, but I'll be sending that out shortly.
Okay, perfect.
Can it please be in person?
I would really like that. I miss seeing you guys and miss having the conversations that we do. It's kind of a challenge to be online, but hopefully, yes. We'll see.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, Jeff, for your hard work and help.
Oh, thank you, Connie. That's nice of you to say. We're a team, right?
Have a great day, everybody. I'm out.
Bye-bye, everyone. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, Jeff, it's
Okay.
Jody here. Could you stay on for a second when everyone's gone?
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, Jody, so I'm Laura Burdine from Tooele County School District. I would like to hear a little bit more about your situation. Just because I, like my director, stepped in as we were having this conversation after I emailed her about the gas agreement. And so she felt like you had some very valid points. And so I don't know if that's what you're going to talk about, but I would just kind of like to hear a little bit more from you and what's happening, because like we all spend our funding just a little bit different, and so it's not universal across the board, which sometimes I think it would be great if it was. But then Jeff, I do have a question after that too. So
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry.
So yeah, Jody, I apologize.
So I'm like really frustrated right now because I feel ran over on the bus because I didn't want this to happen in the meeting like that. I didn't not cooperate. I'm fully aware of the law. And Mike totally did what I thought he would do, and that is threw me under the bus and rolled over. And I don't think that's a very fair or appropriate place in a state meeting.
No, certainly not.
I mean, I had to come to defense. Here, I'm going to call you right out on this. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not going to say we didn't cooperate. And the fact of the matter is, if his district wants to buy gas card, you already told me he's under scrutiny with the state with the way they're doing some spending there. I can't have that in Davis School District. My accounting department does not allow me 2 inches to the right or 2 inches to the left because we're Davis School District. We are huge, we are a target, and they are intense about it. And so if he wants to do gas cards and you guys want to deal with him, that's great. And I already said to you, great, give me a receipt and we'll reimburse him.
Right.
But I just felt like that was really
uncalled for.
And I deserved a little bit better than that as a director here. I mean, we're on the front ground here doing it. I called you personally and privately.
Yes.
And apparently your call with him yesterday did no good because anyway. Yeah. So, sir, I don't know what to do. I am happy to pay for those children. I work my entire life to take care of these children. This is not an issue of that. It's an issue of the fact that he wants me to do it only one way, and that's his way. And I feel like there were some great points that you made that your director asked. We have never, in my entire existence in this job in 3 years, had a district. We don't bill Ogden and Weber. I don't bill them. I send kids weekly that direction and have to take care of transport, and I don't bill them. And I asked you that question before. Is there something we're going to come to that if the district's in dire straits, that we then ask each other? I get canyons. I get the fact that she's got 180 kids that are coming to her and they're going out. But why is he nickel and diming me over this? And then better yet, where is the frickin' phone call?
Yeah.
To me, to the director.
Yes. So I totally get where you're coming from, Jody. I certainly apologize.
Well, I'm mortified in front of my colleagues. I just want you to know that. Mortified.
I understand that. And again, I'm sorry. I did not know that Mike was going to be as upfront and open about his perspective on what the situation was during the meeting. So
what's my penalty if I don't choose to play?
There is no penalty.
Okay, then you need to tell him to be nice to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I apologize for that. I just want you to know, after I spoke with you, I had some personal issues. I was out of the office for a while, had to take some time off. And so I was only able to get in touch with him yesterday. And we had a brief conversation. I let him know that you felt very strongly that he was inappropriate in how he approached the situation, and that a call would be beneficial and that you would have liked that. And he seemed to be okay with that. So I was kind of surprised that he brought it up as he did. So I certainly apologize for my role in that, because I should have been back with you sooner. And
I didn't respond to him. I had my coordinators in my office every single day asking, have you heard from Mike or Jeff? Have you heard from Mike or Jeff? Because we were afraid that this was what was going to happen in this meeting.
Yeah.
So set aside, emotions aside, children foremost in front, and I know that's why a couple others have stayed on. I need some directive on this. So if he bills me to pay gas, he gets to pick mileage, he gets to pick whether it's a gas card, the owner of the student gets to pick it, and then the recipient, who just happens to be housing, just has to kneel and take it.
Well, he should be able to show you proof of all of those things. I mean, just like our finance office was
We
saying,
don't do mileage for parents, and that's his other option. I'm just going to do 50 cents. And I'm going, no, you're not giving these people $75 a week to do this. I mean, I have some serious issues. We're not giving these parents cash to do these things.
No, there shouldn't
Why
be
is he
giving
billing me
cash.
mileage? Because we're not giving them cash.
Right, right. So it's going to be a deeper conversation in regards to, we need to, all three of us sit at the same table at the same time and hash out what are the issues. I'm not sure that he's fully aware of your situation in terms of your district protocols and your district procedures, and that you need to stick to them. I don't think that he's fully aware of that. I tried to make him aware of it yesterday, but in how he was speaking today, it didn't seem like he fully understood that. So
on a bigger picture, though, I think it's a question as you're asking out from Tooele as well, kind of in a bigger umbrella as we're speaking about
broader,
this
a broader spectrum. What is
can we come to some state protocol that how much is too much and who gets to decide and what makes that middle ground? And I mean, and I agree about the collaboration and the cooperation. And quite honestly, Jeff, had he picked up the telephone and had a civil conversation with me, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation right now. But he pushed the envelope of, well, you have to do it because it's federal law. Well, there's no penalty with it. So short of it being federal law, that's really great.
Yeah.
You know, so I just need you to tell me in a larger scope, and it's not just for him, for any of us that are working across the board, what would be an acceptable and appropriate way to do the reimbursement or the split on the gas? Just tell me what that looks like and we will comply.
Okay.
And Jody, I agree with you. Like, my situation is he's got a family that's living in Dell, Utah. I had to even Google it. I was like, where the heck is Dell, Utah? Anyway, it's in between Tooele and Wendover. So this family, and I just Googled it again, is driving 51.9 miles if you were to drive to the city center of Salt Lake City from our area. And I now have to pay gas or somehow figure out how to pay gas for this family when they're driving right through two major towns that they could essentially have their children go to school.
I agree 100%. And it says in the federal guidelines say reasonable. And I don't think that the giving district that's giving these children to us gets to be the only say in this.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where like my district is having a concern because, like I said, I actually thought Mike was going to call me out, and I was like, oh boy.
Oh no, I knew I was first in line. Don't worry, I knew I was first in that line. So that's
okay. I wasn't sure, but I was like, we're still working on it. We haven't come to an agreement, you know. But that's something that I'm looking at here is like, I do know that in this particular case with the students that he's working with, there has been some trauma. There are things that are mitigating them staying in Salt Lake area, and they do have a voucher for housing in Salt Lake, not Tooele. So I understand this, but then my question with my administrators was, well, has anybody gone to check on this family? Are they really living in Dell? Like, are they really living in Salt Lake, but they know nobody's going to go to Dell and check on them? Apparently he said he did go to try to check on them, but he couldn't find them in their living location. And literally there's nothing in Dell. So then I think, well, gosh, that's like a safety concern for children because there is nobody there. And we have people who transport drugs on I-80 every single day. And it's a turnoff, you know, it's just like out in the middle of nowhere. There's no security. I don't even know if there's a cell tower out there. So when you started talking about the gas agreement, I thought, oh, I need to be involved in this because we're handling the same situation. And I want to help, like I don't not want to help. But in return, I have never asked any, and given this is only my second year, but I haven't asked anybody for funding from gas for students. I was dealing with 5 children that were living in the shelter in Connie's area last year, and we spent $2,000 on gas in 1 year for them to drive from Salt Lake to Tooele every day for school. Wow. And not once did I ask, like, Connie, hey, you have to pay me half of that. Like, I just kind of felt like it wasn't as fair because I thought, gosh, Connie, like, I got the funding for them. You didn't, even though they're housed in your area. So I do think that that is kind of a flaw with the law. Or we all need to be doing our funding the exact same way so that the rules apply the exact same way. That's my thought on it, because my funding for McKinney Vento comes straight to my salary, and then my additional funding for my students comes from my Title I set aside. Right. And so Title I has different rules than the McKinney Vento rules, you know, that kind of stuff. So I really think that we should be able to kind of all get on the same level. Like, it needs to be uniform.
I couldn't agree more. I just wish we had something that would say you can, when you're asking somebody to split with you, I mean, reasonably. Yeah. So let's be reasonable. If we're talking about a child being reasonable, that gas cost shouldn't be, I shouldn't be billed $70 a week. I drive from Pleasant View to Farmington every single day, 3 through 3 school districts. I don't go through $75 a week on gas. So we should not be being billed $75 a week to bus a kid from North Salt Lake to Farmington and back. I think there needs to be an amount that we agree on as a state, like $25 a week from the contributing. And really what I want to talk about, Jeff, is why are we penny pinching? Is Salt Lake School District in dire straits for funds? Is this really turning them out? Because if so, absolutely will help them. Or is this just a way so he can offset his costs for his kids? And I just didn't, but that's the law. I can go with it. I just would like a little bit of a policy, because I will not come to another state meeting and be called out.
Yeah.
I will not ever do that again. I work too stinking hard on what I'm doing in this job. And to sit in there and to have him humiliate me and say that we're not cooperating in front of all the colleagues that I don't know, much like you, this is like my 2nd or 3rd year in this job. Yeah. And you know what? We got 17 centers built. I got 5 food pantries, and we're serving kids better than ever. I'm not embarrassed with the work we're doing here. But to sit in front of other state people and have them say, oh my gosh, those people in Davis, we need a policy.
Yes, we do. And again, Jody, I apologize that happened. I wouldn't want it to happen to anybody. So I certainly don't want that to ever happen again, and we'll make sure that it doesn't.
But feeling much like Laura does, I don't know what to do here with it. So can you solve the mic problem for me now? Because I really don't want to meet with him. I just need you to solve it, send him an email and tell him that's what the state says we're doing.
Sounds good. Yes. Okay. Yes, I will take care of that. I will also check on protocols for the state, because I don't know that there has been an issue like this in the past. So I don't know of any protocols that are in place for this state. So I'll need to do some research on my end to figure that out. And if there isn't any, then I'll be speaking with the Department of Ed to come up with what's going on in other states and look at that, and then make a determination on how we can move forward here within the state to create those protocols and ensure that that's what we follow and everybody knows that's what we do.
It just would be nice to just know that when you're sharing transportation costs, this is what it looks like, and this is how we're doing it. Is it? And if he's going to do gas cards, then I do need a copy of the receipt, or because I have to be invoiced for it. Right. And you can't just put transportation, because my folks upstairs will say, well, where's the gas receipt, or how are you basing it? You can't just send somebody money because they send you a piece of paper to say, send me money. Right. So I need that. I do not believe in paying parents mileage. There's nothing in the federal law that says I need to pay them mileage. So I'm not going there. We opted with him also asking the thought of, could I get the kids on the bus at the shelter? Because I have a bus that goes to the shelter, and take it to North Salt Lake or to the point where he picks kids up there and do a bus transfer. Well, why couldn't we not do that? Our taxpayers are already paying for that. What would be some of our solutions that we can do? I feel for you. Delta, Salt Lake, that's going to drain your transportation budget quicker than quick.
I didn't know that was happening, Laura.
What's that?
I said I didn't know that you had that situation happen.
Oh, well, it just came about this week, starting on Monday. So it's very fresh, very new, but that's just one. But that particular family, he would like me to pay $150 a week for transportation.
Okay.
And that's the split. And so, I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, so like I have that plus then I have another one for 75. And that's what my director said. She's like, the Salt Lake County School District is huge. The amount of funding that Salt Lake County School District gets versus my little puny school of county. My county's huge, but I don't have as many kids, you know, so I definitely would appreciate some guidance to however we work it out. I'm fine to help. Mike helps me out a lot. Like he's been a mentor to me, as you guys know, and I do call on him if I have questions or help. So I definitely don't want to burn a bridge or cause any contention, because I do appreciate him. So anyway, but I would like some clarification.
Just like he said, this guy said something. It must be in the same district.
Oh, I think they were talking.
Yeah, I don't know what the conversation was. But yeah, so up until these situations, what you guys are describing to me, I've been working McKinney Vento for, gosh, I want to say almost 7 years. This is the first time that I've seen Mike behave this way. So it's not something that I've seen previously. And again, this is a situation that hasn't really come up. I mean, there's been transportation questions, but I've never seen him be so adamant about getting funds from another district. Because I've seen situations where he's just incurred the cost just to not have any issues. So I'm not sure what's going on there, and I'll have a deeper conversation with him. Jody, I will hash things out with him, get things squared away so that you don't have to discuss anything with him.
Well, I'm not afraid to do it, so I guess I should rephrase that. You hash it out with him, and then the three of us can get on a call, and we'll discuss how we finish it. But I do not want to get on a call and have this kind of conversation with him.
Yeah, no,
I know the law. I could read you the McKinney Vento book. I have spent many insomnia nights digesting that great volume. I didn't need to be called out that I don't understand. What I couldn't do is meet the needs the way he was telling me I had to do because he got to pick.
Right.
And so that to me doesn't seem reasonable.
No, I understand that. So again, I don't know that there is any protocol in the state. So I'll do my homework, my due diligence, and keep you guys posted. Okay. And I won't let more than a day or two go by without you hearing from me. So please know that that I'm working on it and it'll get taken care of. Again, I apologize to you, Jody. I know we had that conversation.
You know what? We're good. We're all in this for kids. I am so excited that the Arp Hcy2 money's coming out. The Arp $2 are coming. I think you asked a question, Laura, about changing what you asked for. I will say, Jeff, ask this question, Jeff, if you wouldn't mind, because when I was sent in my ARP dollars to the first time, my accounting office was pretty specific that my budget needed to be pretty tight because changing it in grants.gov was a pain in the butt. Like it does require some dancing and some amending and some documentations. So I just wanted to make sure if it's going to be, I feel like you do, Laura, I'm not quite sure in 3 years what I'm going to need. I can tell you what I think we're going to do. So I'm dumping most of it into staffing. But if some other crazy pandemic happens and I need hardship money, or Mike sends more kids to the shelter and I've got to send more money that way, I need to move my budget lines to accommodate that.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
I'm a smart aleck, Laura. There is nothing there. 33 years, tired veteran. Got it. Totally. There's not a lot of reverence with me anymore. I got nothing to lose. They can fire me and I can retire.
You're fine.
Yeah, Utah grants is just what it is, right? And I know it's not an easy system to navigate. So the person that was in our meeting earlier, Marilee Wendell, who spoke to us, she's actually setting up those grants. So I'll have that discussion with her and
So there might
see
need to
if
be
there
a
are
place.
amendments that need to be made, how they can be made as easily as possible.
Perfect.
So
Because
that
that's
it's
okay,
not
'cause
a
I'm
burden.
dealing with my accounting person. I'm not worried about dealing with my title person or dealing with my superintendent.
Yeah, no,
They're
I
worried
totally
about me
get you.
changing. It's my accounting person starts to literally shake.
Yeah, I
because
totally
they have
get
to
you.
account on the reimbursement piece.
Yeah, I totally get you. It's a whole different mindset and type of person to deal with. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
And then
Um,
he's fabulous, but he keeps us all out of jail.
Yeah.
Which is what I
And that's
most
good.
appreciate every single
Right?
day that I come to this
Yeah.
office, because we work with a population that requires us to push the limits every single day. And my accounting department keeps me from joining the people at the state pen.
And I don't think
Yeah.
you would look good in an orange jumpsuit.
I
to
don't
be-
either. Orange is definitely not my color. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for letting me unload a bit on you at the end.
No,
I'm sorry I cut him off, but it was like, you know what, we are not going into the weeds on this one. Nobody
No.
there cared about what he and I had said. What I
No.
wanted to know was the other thing. So my apologies for my a little
No.
bit of emotional response to this today, but I care deeply about this work, and I care deeply about the reputation of Davis School District. We do care. We do
Right.
collaborate. We do coordinate. We share everything we have and a little bit more.
Yeah. And there's no question about that. So
And
I
if I
totally
need to send
understand.
money, I'll send as much as you tell me to, but I don't understand what happened.
Yeah. So yeah, again, Jody, I'm really sorry that you had to experience that today, but I promise you it will not happen again.
Okay. Perfect. Let me know about the other. Lars,
Absolutely.
it's a
Yeah,
pleasure to meet you. I
I'll
love
keep
your
it.
Walmart that you're doing. Do you mind if my wonderful team reaches out to you? Because I think that
Sure.
would solve many of our other issues that we're having if we had a special
Sure.
arrangement with Walmart. I loved what you
Yeah.
shared today.
And I did send my voucher and a copy, like a link to the security paper from Amazon to, who did I send it to, Jeff?
To
Your
Renee?
name? Renee. I was like,
What is
wait,
your
that's
direct
not-
line that I could have Jen and Amy call you if they wanted to,
Sure.
after they look at it? Do you mind?
Sure, yeah. No, so 435
Okay.
833 1900 extension 1415.
You are the best. Thanks, Jeff, for all you do. Sorry you have to
you,
wrangle the
Judy.
cats.
No worries. It's always
Okay.
fun.
Nice
to
to
work
meet you,
with guys.
Jody.
Nice to meet you.
Bye,
Bye.
Jody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, Jeff, so I have a question unless it looks like Greg is still on. So I don't know if Greg has a question or he's just on. So I don't know. Anyway, I'll go ahead and go. But okay, so my question kind of goes back to that where you talked about us being our advocates for our students, right?
Yeah.
And I have a particular high school student that I have been working with. I'm trying to make sure we're getting her set up for graduation. And in some of our conversations, some sexual abuse has been brought forth to light. And so they didn't want to get mom involved, just kind of like not really trusting some adults in the school. So I went ahead and got, of course, Marianne, my boss, and I just thought she could offer some counseling services. And from that point forward, she has taken over this student from me. Like, I don't even hardly know what's going on. And then she'll have conversations with her, obviously in private, which is fine to a point, but then I don't get the information back, what happened and how I can continue to help. So I've tried to like find a way that I could roundabout bring that up with her to discuss that, because I obviously don't, I have to tread lightly. Like, I don't want to offend. I don't want to cause issues. We definitely don't need contention in the workplace.
Right.
So I just have expressed my desire that, I have asked to be part of these meetings. You're going to meet with mom and you're going to discuss her school schedule and you're going to discuss graduation. And then in that, you're going to try to bring forth some of the abuse that's been taking place so that mom is aware. And I've asked to be involved in these meetings. I don't have to go and say anything, but I would like to be there for my student. And I'm being told no, that because I don't have that piece of paper that says I am a counselor, then I'm not allowed to be in there. But only an administrator or her can have these kind of conversations with this student. And I'm like, but I'm her advocate and she trusts me and I need to be there. And she's wanting me there. And so it's just really frustrating. And this isn't the first time. Like, there's obviously been more that like they'll be taken over, and it kind of gets thrown back in my face that because I don't have a counseling degree, then therefore I can't be involved. And so I wanted to get opinion from you on this and what you would maybe do in that situation. Would you pursue it? Would you talk to somebody over her? Would you, like, how do you advocate for your kids if you're being blocked?
Yeah, I would definitely pursue it. The maybe the best way to go about it, if that's the issue, if the reason that they're not wanting you there is because of you're not being a licensed psychiatrist,
Yep.
then you can say, okay, well, the school administrator isn't a licensed psychiatrist, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
It's not an issue of whether you're a licensed psychiatrist or not. It's, can you provide services that would meet the needs of that student? And you, in your role as a liaison, absolutely can and should be, right? So if there's something keeping you from doing that, then that's a concern. And I think you can go about saying that in that way and saying, look, I realize I'm not, licensed psychiatrist, but I don't have to be, because my role is to be a student advocate. And if I don't know what's going on with the student, if I don't hear those conversations, then how am I supposed to meet their needs? And we as a district can't meet their needs full on if I'm not able to participate or attend those meetings or know what's going on.
Yeah. And I did do that.
Yeah.
Even while our meeting was going on, because she came into my office to discuss the gas cards, and I was like, so I kind of brought it up because it was a good time for me to finally bring it up. And I said that, I'm like, how can I help if I'm not involved in what's happening here? Like, if I don't know. And she says, well, I'm working with my counselors, and then my counselors can tell you. I mean, they're like changing schedules and all sorts of stuff. And I said, but I need to be made aware of these things. Like, I need to be able to work with that student to make sure that's what they want. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. Is it agreeable? But like, don't come to me afterwards and tell me that just because I'm not licensed or I'm not an administrator, then therefore I don't have any rights or regulations to help my students in the way that I need to be. So I just, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So how did she respond to that? Can I ask?
She told me that I can't be involved in those conversations because of the license thing, and that it's to protect myself from getting in trouble with anything because I'm not licensed. And I was like, but then how am I going to help? And she's like, well, you can still help other ways. And I was like, but I don't know what help can be even given if you've taken the ball out of my court.
Yeah.
And then I hear about things after the fact. Like, that's not how I see it when working with my kids. Like, my kids are my kids.
Yeah.
I think I should be involved.
Yeah. The other thing you could mention is by kind of splitting the meeting and saying, look, I understand there are sensitive issues that I don't need to be privy to, and I don't need to hear, but there are parts of this student's academic career that I need to be aware of. And if they're changing, if you're talking about changing coursework, if you're talking about making changes to their academic stuff, then I need to be involved in that conversation. So is there any way to split the conversation or split that meeting so that you can be there partially? And then when it gets to a point where you need to have the more, the more psychological discussion about any abuse that's going on or whatever, you can leave the room and you don't need to be there for that specifically. That might make whoever's doing this to you or everybody that's doing this to you, just be more aware that you do need to be a part of that conversation, and you don't necessarily need to hear all of it, but you do need to be a participant in what's going on with the student academically, because that is your role.
Yeah.
The purpose of the liaison is to ensure that there are no barriers to that student's education. So if you're talking about that student's education, you should be in that room.
Okay.
Right? And maybe splitting up or making the suggestions, split the meeting that way might be helpful for you, and they might feel more comfortable to say, oh yeah, we can do that then. We can talk about their coursework or whatever at the beginning of the meeting, and then once things, we've gone through that, then we can let you go and we can continue on with whatever else needs to be discussed.
Okay, that's a good way of approaching it. I was also told at the beginning of this year, it was probably right before school started, and we had some conversations about some students, and I was blatantly told that other school districts don't hire people like me, that they only hire people who are directors, who have multiple degrees, and who have the background into running a program. And I felt like this big.
Oh, that's
and
terrible.
I was like, just because I don't have a psychology degree or a counseling degree does not mean that I don't have that background, that I don't have that knowledge, and that I'm not capable of running a program like I'm running. So I really did feel really bad. And I think things keep kind of stemming back to that mindset, though, is that like they don't hire people like me because I don't have that degree. And therefore, I can't be involved in that portion of it. And so I'm kind of like frustrated with it, because I thought, like, why am I under counseling in the first place in the department out there? Why am I not under federal programs like everybody else?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing conversation, right? So that's the first thing I would remind you of. The second thing I would remind you of is that, well, it's just terrible that people have told that to you. That's awful in a whole host of ways. But that doesn't diminish your role, because in your district, in any district, the person who sits in your chair is the only person who can determine federal services for a student based on McKinney Vento. A principal can't, your district superintendent can't, whoever's telling you that you shouldn't be in those meetings can't do that. That is your sole responsibility, and your advocacy is really what's going to keep that student engaged in school.
Okay.
And nobody else has that right. I mean, certainly they can advocate for kids. I'm not saying they can't, but it is specifically in your job description to be a student advocate and to be there for them and ensure that their academic needs are met and that they can have the education that anybody else would get in your district. And that falls on you. That solely falls on you as the liaison. So you're the only person that can identify a kid and qualify them as McKinney Vento. So regardless of whether you have a degree or not in that, nobody else can. Doesn't matter if they have doctorates, doesn't matter if they have several masters, doesn't matter what their position is. And in that capacity, you are an administrator.
Well, yeah. And that's what I'm like so frustrated with, is just because I don't have it as like an official title doesn't mean I'm not doing the work. I mean, I've done a lot, like already in just 2 years, not even 2 years, a year and 3-4 months, that I've been doing this. And I'm just like, don't discredit me, and don't not allow me to be there to help support the kids, because really what it's coming down to is like these conversations about getting this student some therapeutic needs is going to affect this child's education. Like if they're holding all this in, then they're not going to want to come to school because they've got depression or they're whatever. And like that, it all comes back to that. And so it's like, yes, I get that like there are sticky situations, but at the same time, I'm like, don't block me out either. But I also didn't know how to approach either. So I'm trying very hard just to like not let it become an issue, and approach it the proper way, because I definitely don't want to do anything that's going to cause issues. So
no, of course not.
I will.
And I can see that's not your intent. I mean, anybody that I think would really be listening to what you're saying really couldn't come to that conclusion, that you're trying to be difficult or trying to keep your ego happy by doing this. I mean, it really is a responsibility that falls on you, and it's your sole responsibility to be able to do that. And you are, for all intents and purposes, an administrator for those kids. I mean, that's the reality. You're in an administrative position, even if it may not be called that. It is an administrative role. The other thing I
Mhm.
can recommend to you is I have to do some monitoring visits for this year. I would be happy to come and monitor you in your district.
Okay.
And maybe that would facilitate some of those conversations with me present to say, you need to be at the table when these conversations are happening, and you don't need to hear everything that's going on in a
Okay.
student's personal life, but you do need to know about what's going on with them academically.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I would love that.
okay. Yeah, so
That would
I'll
be good.
put you guys, I'll set you guys on for being monitored, which would mean that we'd have some discussions about what's going on within the district and how things are going, and
Okay.
then we can go from there. Maybe that would be a help for you.
That would be great. I would appreciate that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to me today
No,
and
absolutely, Laura. I
helping me out
appreciate you
as
very much.
always.
I appreciate you and
Okay.
all that you do. I know you're nonstop busy, and I know all the work that you do. You're really great.
Well, thanks, Jeff. And same with you. I mean, I definitely rely on you a lot. So appreciate your mentorship as well. So,
Happy
all
to be
right.
here. Yeah. You have a
Okay.
great day.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.
Hello, Greg. Did you have a question for me? Greg, I haven't heard from you and haven't responded, so I'm going to assume that you're not present. If you do have any questions for me, though, please give me a call or send me an email. My phone number is 801-538-7945, and my email is jeff.ojeda, my last name, @schools.utah.gov. Have a great day.